Hey, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you're at. I'm your host here, Dan Reeves. Welcome back to the Spiritual Underground podcast. If you're just bouncing along this podcast for the first time, a lot of my content is primarily 12-step recovery type of data. A lot of people tell their 12-step stories, much like people do at the podiums all over the world in the rooms of 12-step communities. And that's what brought me, that's kind of was my springboard to opening my heart and my mind to some new ideas. And the podcast has kind of evolved where people are coming and wanting to bring or offering tools and wanting to talk about them. And I just keep on answering the door and having wonderful guests like mine today, Larry Freeborg, one of the things I like this title of the book at Always at Choice, uh, because most of I just like that frame of thought that most time you're standing ready to make a choice one way or another, um, and I make a lot healthier choices today than I once did in my life.
Good for
Welcome to the
you.
show, Larry.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. We
Yeah.
both have a journey that we've been on that has gotten us to where we are. We've used 12 steps to get us there. I'll tell you what, I didn't have the tools when my wife died, and I didn't have the tools for quite a few years after she died either. But I was dating a woman that she had to leave for Houston, Texas, because her mother died from alcoholism
Mhm.
and had gone into treatment 7 times.
Wow.
And so when she came back, we were living together at that time. But she said, "I'm going to leave. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic." And I said, "Well, what's the guidelines for that?" She said, "Well, there's a book out by Janet Wojtitz talking about the 12 characteristics of adult children of alcoholics." I said, "Well, read them to me if you would." Well, she read them to me, and I said, "Well, I got 8 of those." I had all 12, but I was in denial for 4 anyway. So, actually, as a result of being together with her, I started to attend adult children of alcoholics meetings and did for 5 years after that particular experience. Now, she isn't the lady that I ended up with, but she's the lady that brought me to adult children of alcoholics. In that journey, another thing happened as I met Sharon Weichschauder Cruz. Now, she's the person who actually co founded Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Mhm.
And I had a chance, my life was going along and I was struggling with some of the recovery programs. But I had a chance to make a decision of going to Sharon's program. And I finally decided I would go, if nothing was working, I'd finally go to Sharon Weichschauder Cruz's workshop in Minneapolis. And that led me to going to a program called Onsite. Onsite is one of the top 10 therapeutic centers in the United States, which
Mhm.
I got a lot of help at. And so, but many of the big lessons that I learned were back in the 12-step program, where, step 4 was pretty revealing for me. What I had realized is that in starting to recover after my wife's death, is that every woman that I dated was an adult children of an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And I said, man, I must, it's not their problem. I'm attracting them. And so I
Mhm.
need to get myself straightened out. So that's what was the beginning of the journey. And there's a lot of stuff after that.
Yeah. 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 I wonder just like how it'd be amazing to know exactly how many people have been helped by one kind of 12-step program or another. And it
Yeah.
tends to be that thing. I almost felt like, I felt like I was a grown man walking around and doing grown man kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but deep inside, and I really had this feeling at some point was almost palpable. I felt this feeling that when I got sober, I worked the 12 steps. My life was getting better. Good things were happening around me. And and all of a sudden I felt like I had shifted from this 12-year-old boy to this 45-year-old man in a matter of months or something.
Mm.
Can't really put my finger around it. And I thought, I finally feel like an adult and I can actually be that, where I felt like almost like in the movie Big, where the little boy is walking around in his dad's suit and the sleeves are too long and the tie is hanging down to his knees,
Yeah.
and I almost pictured myself doing that and living that way until I started seeing some of these patterns of what I was doing, and that fourth and fifth step highlighted those patterns that were frankly defeating me. Uh, how
Well,
long were you married? This the real and it's kind of like a bottom almost, right? The loss of your wife. Some it tends to be, and the people I talk to, some event or some kind of thing most of the time, like will end up changing the trajectory of their lives, which causes them to go searching for tools, help, and that's usually the catalyst. And it sounds like that's what that was for you.
well, my first wife, Shirley, died the day after Christmas in 1979.
Ooh.
About 5 weeks later, I got the information that my job was eliminated, and
Mm.
that I had had for 18 years.
Wow.
And it was in the middle of a depressed economy where unemployment was 7.4% at that time, which is even more than it is today. And, you know, I did what I needed to do to try to raise 4 kids. So I had 4 kids, no job, no money. And finally, I had been trying to be very active in my community, and I wasn't keeping my promises, and that was causing me lots of stress. I went to the office and I found myself breaking down and crying. So I called my folks and asked if they could help me out. And my dad wisely suggested, was there anybody at the office that I could talk to? So I called the psychiatrist. I told him what my situation was. He asked me if I'd be willing to go into the psych ward. And I said, man, you bet. And fortunately, what had happened in my business life, I had learned to use outside consultants.
Mm.
So what I did is I just said, hey, if it's okay to use outside consultants in my business life, why isn't it okay to use outside consultants in my personal life? So I didn't attach any stigma to the fact that I was getting mental help. And so I went into the psych ward and they let you kind of rest for the couple of days. And then the occupational therapist came around and asked me how things were going. And I said, oh, great. You know, I'm a positive guy most of the time. And she listened politely and said, well, that's terrific. And how are the kids? I said, oh, my kids are great. You know, we knew Shirley was going to die from leukemia. And so based on my experience with my mom being sick when I was a youngster at 10 years old, she had Guillain-Barré, and I didn't know if she was ever coming back. I knew that it was important to assign the tasks out to everybody that was in the family. And she said, oh, well, so clothes washing is going good. Yeah, that's good. And cleaning the house is going good. Yeah, that's good. Well, how about cooking? I said, man, cooking. I said, I cooked the first 3 meals of our marriage. Then I said, you cook and I'll go out and make the money. So she said, well, you can learn how to cook here. I said, you're kidding. No, but you have to do it right. You have to read the cookbook. You have to decide what the ingredients are, get the ingredients in, we'll ship them in, and then you go to your own cooking room and you cook up the meal. I said, okay, I choose to bake a chicken. Well, anybody that has cooked at all knows I chose one of the easiest tasks in the world, but I was going to do it my way. So stuff came in and I was in my cooking room. I had a French knife in my hand and I'm chopping the celery and chopping the onions and chopping the heart and the liver and boiling my broth because I had decided I was going to make my own stuffing.
Mm.
Why not just buy stovetop, right? No, I'm going to do it right. So what happened when I was cutting all that stuff, I got angrier and angrier and angrier. And I said, man, I got to talk to somebody. So I talked to the nurse and I said, hey, I'm getting angry. I'm really getting angry. So they sent me to my room without the knife, of course. Today, I would know that that would be post-traumatic stress disorder. But at that particular time, I just knew I wasn't a very safe person to be around with that knife in my hand and having all my anger about my situation. Well, so I'm in my room waiting, and this little nurse comes in. She said, well, Larry, how's things going? I understand you hit a little stumble. I said, yes, I spent 2 hours on this GD chicken, and that's how I'm going to have to live the rest of my life, cooking for my kids. And so she said, well, it sounds to me like you're going to have to grow up.
Yeah.
Man, I hit the ceiling. I sputtered and all that other stuff. And then she said, no, what I'm really telling you is asking you about choice. How do you choose to take care of your kids? And I said, well, it's not a choice. I have to take care of my kids. I need to take care of my kids. It's my responsibility to take care of my kids. She said, no, what I'm trying to do is get you to look at the options and choose how you want to take care of your kids. And I gave her another song and dance about how I had to take care of my kids. That's my dad did when my mom was sick. And finally, I got so frustrated by her telling me that I had to choose. I said, all right, I choose to take care of my kids. She said, well, that's great. Now that you've chosen how you want to take care of your kids, we can now decide how you can choose to feed your kids, how you can choose to cook for your kids. And that was where the awareness came in that I was always a choice. And it became the foundational pivot that I operate from my entire life since I was 40, that I'm always a choice. That's the foundational belief system that I ended up with. That particular belief system led me to the idea that I'm accountable and responsible for what I create in my life. That's another big one. So I don't walk around living like a victim. I mean, I can have tough stuff that happens, but it happens and you accept it and it turns into a gift and an opportunity and you go on. But I was accountable and responsible for what I created in my life. One of the important things to create is my mood, is that it's a lot easier to get things done when you're thinking positively than when you're thinking negatively. And so I learned a lot about thinking positively. And my spirituality, Dan, is really not religiosity, but my spirituality comes from what I call blessings. Blessings are things that come to me that I don't have any control over. Things like birds, squirrels, trees, flowers, horses, dogs, cats. I mean, I celebrate them every day. I do 10 blessings a day. It's a practice. But it's what keeps my balance, that instead of thinking negative thoughts, I think these positive thoughts and appreciate them. And it just is the way that I've chosen how to stay connected with a higher power that's greater than me.
Yeah, yeah, that whole mindset thing, and I watch people, and some people just have that negative Nancy thing going on all the time, then that, and and you watch it, and watch them looks like they're like walking through knee deep mud in life, they just can't really get anywhere,
Right.
and sometimes you can sit down, and I've had through the 12 steps, I've had wonderful opportunities to help somebody. Like one of the things I think I do in that world is give you a different perspective than what you're saying. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it is not what you're looking at. Maybe it's really, maybe it's maybe closer to something like this. Could I offer that to you? Would that feel better about how you, and real slow, that thing, if they will, participate. I always, you got to participate in this stuff. The patient has to comply with the treatment. Uh, you'll watch them slowly be able to bend that mindset of many, many years of operating another way. But then also there's some I have a friend today who just cannot seem to bend that, man, and he's suffering. And it's just, he's had horrible things happen to him, and he's had bad luck or whatever, and he just cannot seem to get past that. One of the other things is he's refusing to put down the booze completely too. He's doing the moderating thing, and he
Yeah,
won't, but that mindset of having that, we do gratitude lists, right? Much like your blessings. Uh, I thought when you were saying that, I paralleled off. When I was first getting sober, my sponsor said, you should start writing this stuff down because there were these blessings happening. And I called it my miracle list at the time, and I still call it that. Uh,
it's a good list.
yeah, and it's kind of like a long-term gratitude list too that I get to revisit at times, and it's not that I've forgotten about stuff, but
Yeah.
over the past 11 years or so, a lot of cool stuff has happened. And unless I'm prompted to share it by somebody else's storytelling or something like that, it
Right.
just kind of sets in the crook and cranny. But I make a point to get that out now and again and just kind of peruse it. And it does, it injects that positivity into me. Like I said, it's a lot easier. I just told you before the show, I'm down there working on a carburetor and on a generator, and I can promise you it's going better with a smile on my face than a frown. And what
Yeah.
difference that makes, I don't know. I don't care. But I do know that and recognize it. My approach to life makes a world of difference.
Well, there's one more belief system that I learned along the way, and that was to be an observer of the observer I am. Because I too have experienced the same thing that you have, is that if people are in locked belief systems and I can't open them up to look at the world differently. So what I learned is that it was important to learn where did they get their belief systems from their parents, from the church, from their friends, from school. But somewhere they got a belief system about what was good and what was bad and what was fun and what was not fun. And you have to make choices. So what I've realized is that once I'm clear about being an observer of the observer that I am, that sometimes the way that I'm looking at the problem is the problem. And if I can change how I look at the problem, I got a chance of getting out of it. But if I just keep looking at the problem the same way, like I'm a victim and everybody else is put down on me, then I'm kind of stuck. I have to really back out, take a look at what caused me to have those particular belief systems and make a choice to live another way.
Yeah, uh, frankly, I believe we're trained by all that stuff that happened to us, how we were brought up and it was, bring this to other people also, but people brought it to me was that I get to like recreate this belief system. I'm not stuck in that one. I don't have to continue to operate in a system that's clearly not working. And
Yeah,
I don't know,
right,
that makes a lot of sense to me right now. But at the time, it was like, oh, what do you mean I don't hold? I've been taught this my whole life that this is the
right.
way it was, and to put that down and to, develop I just say a relationship with a power greater than myself and about how I move around can be mine. I don't have to. I can borrow from you, and I can borrow, and I do like to look at the. A
Yeah,
friend of mine said to me once, I try to draw from all the ancient spiritual teachings. When I was stuck thinking you had to be in one box,
right.
and again, makes complete sense to me now. But at the time, I look back, and it was like I was thinking there was a rail, and I was on that rail, and I wasn't going to jump off onto some other tracks. And that simple sentence that seemed, that was 15 years ago or something that man said that to me. That man's first name is Happy. How's
Okay.
that? It's not really, but that's what he goes by. He's got the same name as his dad, so they named him something. They give him a nickname, but and he worked. The name fits him. But those that being able to recreate myself and almost given permission to do that was a big turning point. And somebody actually gave me permission to let go of that old stuff where I was just
Well, one of the lessons that I learned when I was going through adult children And I used to use it with some of the people that I worked with at the time, is that wherever you go, there you are.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not like you want to be different. Wherever you go, if you've got anxiety and stress and anger and resentment, you're just going to take it with you to the new place unless you work through it. So,
Yeah, we call that geographical cure that we're hunting for.
yeah,
If I
that would be
just move
good.
there, then, or if I'll, stop hanging around with those people, and but no matter where I went, there I was, and
Yeah.
and had the same thing to deal with.
And there was all these lessons along the way were really pretty terrific. And so what happened is I ended up becoming a learner. I never realized that I was going to be a lifelong learner. And, when I finished school, I just thought that was it. I was done learning. But in this journey that in this journey that I've been on a constant learning journey. So I've done various coaching workshops, various life planning workshops, and so I ended up in somatic training, and I ended up in equine guided coaching training, and I now have what I think is a pretty good solid base of belief systems that allow me to live the life that I live, and allowed my 4 kids to come through and be nice people, which I think is pretty nice. And I just lost my second wife now, the first of this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm using my book as a way of handling grief, having been there once and not handling it very well and having to learn a lot about grief, I'm at least able to apply it to my situation today. And I know that life is short. You don't think about it sometimes before you have to think about it. But when I was looking at my life, I have a choice of either grieving all the time or making a choice to accept what happened. Now, accept that my second wife died. I miss her a lot, but she's never coming back. I just have the memories of her that stay with me and the loving, kind, supportive memories that she gave me. But if I want to go on with the rest of my life, what am I going to do? What service am I going to provide? Which is my commitment to be of service to other people and to share what I've learned to help them live a better life in the time that they've got left. And I don't have any idea how long I've got left, but I know it's less than I had when I was 40. So my idea was I was really struggling with what is my purpose and what is my service at this stage of my life. And I finished the book at that time. It got published in September of last year. And I resisted. I said, I don't want to go out and talk about my life. And then more that I thought about it, that is my purpose right now, is to share my story so that it can give other people a lift, give them some possibilities of what they could do with their life and not be stuck just because they're stuck with, the evil devil. Yeah.
Yeah, that service element is obviously important in my world, and I think it's actually like a critical element to a uh, successful, fruitful life. I think if you're not doing some kind of service, you're leaving a lot on the table. I need it in my life. I need it in what are ways, and that's one of the ways I move through the world is to be watching for where I can be helpful. Whether if it's anything, if it's helping somebody load groceries in the back of their car, if I can be helpful if at that moment. And the other thing is today, after practicing that, I can't allow myself to walk past those opportunities, at least to offer, and sometimes it's more bigger, more sometimes it's taking a guy through the 12 steps. Sometimes it's, I don't know, but I keep my eyes open for that. And the old adage of like, I think there's some, won't be able to get it exactly right, but like the deal where if you make it out of hell, your job is not just to keep running, it's to grab a bucket and go get somebody else and help them out. Because we've all gone through our stuff. And I think it's that old hero's journey, Joseph Campbell hero journey kind of thought is that you're going to have bumps in the road. You just are. That's life. That's what it is.
Yeah,
and part of my job is to overcome that and not let that be a obstacle that stops my growth and stops my continued ability to give to the stream of life. And at the same time, those obstacles that I made it through, I can turn back to people who are currently going through the same or similar type of obstacles and help them with what I know, help them get through that. And that you know,
that's
I'm a
great.
big believer in that. And then all we really have is our stories, right? That's all we really have.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have another story that might fit with your story. You know, I'm 87 years old right now, but I had to pass through 65. At 65, everybody's excited about, or a lot of people are excited about retirement. And I looked at the word retirement in the dictionary, and really it's kind of a crummy word. You give up your profession, you lay down and sleep, you retire. And the more that I looked at it, the more that I realized I don't want to retire. I enjoy doing what I'm doing. So I decided I would refire instead of retire. And the lesson is pretty well documented that if you're still being of service, you probably will extend your life maybe another 8 to 10 years. So I like living. I like being of service. It gives me a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment. And so
yeah,
that's refire instead of retire.
I wrote that down because uh, I really like that. I get handed tools and various little things and that I gather up. I always think I've got like a toolbox next to me. Just walk around and pile them up. My 88-year-old father lives with me. My mom passed away in 2016.
Oh, wow.
I had a lot of trouble processing that. I was newly sober. I was like 14 months sober, and mom passed away, and it was a 6 month long ordeal where she was sick and it was awful, and dad took it hard, and he didn't want to live in that house anymore where she passed, which I can say one of them. She she passed at home, surrounded by her loved ones. I don't know what more you can ask for in that end time than that. So
Yeah.
all that was okay, but dad just wasn't, and I have this house and we decided, we talked about it and discussed it, and he moved in with me sometime around 2017, and he's downstairs right now.
Hmm.
But that's a service thing in a sense to me. My father, I always tell people I hit the jackpot in the dad department. I really did in both parents, but specifically in the dad department. And today I can give back to him in a way that I'm really happy doing that. He's got company. My son lives here. My 22-year-old son lives here. I'm
Okay.
50, I'm 56 and dad's 88. So we got three generations of men living in this house. One of my other jokes is the minute you walk in the front door, you can tell this place ain't been had a feminine touch in a long time. Uh, and that's okay. We like it, and I enjoy it. Dad's taught me a lot, and he's always had that innate ability to do the next right thing. As I look back over time, I didn't pick, as much as I've learned from him, and maybe I got it now, but it maybe just a slow learner or whatever. But
Yeah.
as I look back, I see Dad made these decisions uh, at the spur of the moment. Like even the day that Mom passed, it was Super Bowl Sunday, February the 7th, 2016. And she passed that early morning, about 9 a.m. And we'd been over all night, and everybody was tired. And they swept Mom out of there at the appropriate time. Everything went down, everything's okay. And he looked over at me, and I'm divorced, and my kids were staying with me at that point in time, just the whole co-parenting thing. And Dad looked over at me and he said, "Can I spend the night with you tonight?"
Wow.
And and I didn't really think about it too much until later. I was never, I see life in the rearview mirror. I never see it when I'm standing in it. I look over my shoulder and go, "Oh, I kind of see what was happening there."
Yeah.
Uh, and he made that like snap decision to do something healthy instead of staying there by himself. And we came over and watched the Super Bowl and ordered pizza. And later on that night, I took a picture, and my son's got bunk beds, and he always slept in the top, of course. And there, my son is up there now. He was 11.
Wow.
and my 80-year-old dad or whatever that was down in the bottom bunk sleeping.
Yeah.
And back actually, I live in the house I grew up in. I individually bought it from my parents, and they downsized. So there's a lot of tie-in back and forth with that. But I had to get some help for grieving with mom. I like almost refuse, looking back on it, I like refused to like go through the process. I resisted it, and that just extended it. You know,
Yeah.
thank God for a 12-step sponsor was able to help me with coaching through some of that.
Yeah. It you don't know where the help is really going to come from at the time. It's just lucky that there are people, you might even call them angels, that show up in your life and become guides, that somehow they influence you to go to the next step and go to the next step. My life is a beneficiary of a lot of people that have taught me stuff that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, which is that particular, the cover of my book is that a big medallion or a big ship getting out. Well, that happens to be a picture, an actual picture of a copper rubbing that I did when I was in the psych ward.
Hmm.
And I positioned the rubbing to look like coming out of a dark space and moving into light, but with a bunch of sailors helping me fly the or sail the ship. And that's been nice to look at my life that way, is that one of the lessons I learned is to always ask for help or be willing to ask for help, which for some people that haven't got into AA yet or into adult children of alcoholics, it's really hard for them to be willing to ask for help because somehow we grow up with the idea we should know the answers. Well, that's not true. We don't have all the answers, and you're a lot better off if you're willing to ask for help and ask for guidance than to try to do it all by yourself.
Yeah. The
Sponsors.
male stereotype, that I'm not stopping and asking for directions, right? We don't have to anymore with these devices and stuff, but that's kind of like the thing is that I'll wander around lost. I am not pulling over and asking how to get there.
Yeah.
And I did that. We do that in life. We do that walking around. But like you said, fortunate that we've each had opportunities to break through that. And I got no problem asking for help today.
So when I'll try things for a while, just
Sure.
try to get through them. And if I'm not making it through, eventually I will find somebody that I can ask for help.
Yep.
And it's been a good thing to have, that ability to ask for help. I didn't have it at the beginning, but
Yeah.
after about, several years of trying to live alone and raise my kids, that's the only way that I could have done it the way that I did it and to end up with kids the way that they are. You said you had a 22-year-old son, but you said also you have some other family members, children?
I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. The daughter spends her time mostly with her mother, which is a quarter mile or half a mile away from me.
Okay.
We're all here. I thought about it the other day, and I live in a little town called New Albany, Indiana. It's just on the north side of the river from Louisville, Kentucky, the
Okay.
Ohio River. And uh, and I've lived in four houses in my life. One of them I was an infant, and I don't have any. We moved before I was a year old. Uh, but I could walk to every one of those four houses right now without, in a few minutes. I lived in like a half-mile radius
Wow.
all my life, and even still, I could walk to my brother's house. I've got a 30-month younger brother that just lives down the road. I'd rather drive, but I could walk there. It wouldn't be any problem. I have walked there. I could walk to I like to say my kid's mom. I don't like the energy around ex-wife.
Mhm.
But I can walk to my kid's mom's house and I could go visit the other houses I lived in with just by walking around here.
You've got a nice cozy spot.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I feel real grounded when I run into somebody. I have a really good friend in 12-step recovery that's almost a nomad. He's currently someplace in northern Arkansas, but I've probably only known him 5 or 6 years, and I'll bet he's lived in that many different states over the years that I've known him. And
Wow.
it just kind of, like, yeah, I would feel very uncomfortable. I'm very grounded and here. And I like to travel. That's not a problem. But that nomadic lifestyle he has, and I think we get along real well because of the difference in between our two. We joke around about it because he kids me about being here in New
Yeah.
Albany all my life, and then I kid him about never putting down any roots and staying anywhere.
But he's doing okay?
Yep. Yep,
That's good.
yep, he's doing great. Matter of fact, he moved to northern Arkansas and he settled down there for the moment because his parents are getting old and need some help. That's the main
Yeah.
reason he circled back home and is living there again. But um, the so what are, like, as far as this, give me a few tips or stories or stuff that you come about as far as this handling this grieving process, this deal. Like I said in the beginning, I've got a couple friends that are like working their way through that right now. And that's another one of these funny things. And when this come to me and I'm looking to see how I can be supportive to my friends that are going through something, I want to be the friend. I want to be compassionate and listen and that kind of stuff. And then poof, here comes a guy who's like has wrote a book about it, about this kinds of stuff. Just as another story, and this is completely off base, but I do find, and I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I pick up this thing about my compass being in my true north. And when I have my compass and my life aligned, I'm not slipping around doing stuff I know I shouldn't be doing. I'm
Yeah.
not flirting with danger kind of things. I'm pretty well. It's not that I'm no fun. I have lots of fun, but I'm in alignment today. Things work out in weird ways. So the Wednesday night I was double booked and I didn't realize it. And I had a yoga class scheduled and I had a haircut class scheduled, and they were two haircut scheduled, and they were too tight to one another, and I just let it get away from me. And I woke up that morning and I saw it in my calendar because, like the 12 step says, upon awakening, we look at the 24 hours ahead. And I do that in the morning with my prayer and meditation, and then I look and see what's on the docket, just to remind myself, okay, what do I have? And I keep my calendar in my phone, and I saw that, and I thought, I wonder if she could change my appointment today. I wonder if I could get in there early. And then I went off to work and I got to working and I forgot all about it. And I
Yeah.
looked down and I had a voicemail on my phone that said, "Hey, Dan, your appointment with Farha today. Is there any way you could come in a little earlier today?" And and those things happen. That's the kind of stuff, those miracles, those blessings that I keep watching for, and how that works out, I have no idea. But I do fully believe it is as a result of living life the way I'm living it and keeping my compass needle pointed in my north.
Just give me a moment. Let me reach over and get something.
Absolutely.
It inside the book, I struggled for a long time trying to figure out how to grieve, what the process was, and there wasn't a lot of lessons or places for me to go to learn at that particular time. There's a lot more that are available today. And one of the ones that I came across with is, for me, the easiest way to understand grieving. And it's in a book, and I'm trying to look up the book. It's called The Whirlpool of Grief. You probably can't see it right there, but let's see.
Yeah, it's kind of disappearing in the background
Right.
graphics, but the whirlpool of life, is that what you said?
No, The Whirlpool of Grief.
The whirlpool of grief.
And it shows somebody in a let's say a kayak, and they're trying to go upriver, normal life, right? And all of a sudden you have death that comes in, and you end up having shock, and you're numbless, you're in denial, and that you're in the waterfall.
Mm.
You're out of control, right? Your system is out of control. They call that the waterfall of bereavement. And then it goes down into the bottom. If you look, have you done any whitewater rafting at all or
Yep.
kayaking?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you know that down below a rapids or something, there's always this little whirlpool or this eddy, and you kind of sit there for a while, and you kind of lost in emotional disorganization or falling apart. And that's what I felt like, severe disorganization, feeling all washed up or breakdown. And you just felt lost, like who am I? What am I? Who do I connect up with? And eventually you get into mourning, you understand, and which is what I did with Dodie, just death, and then reorganization and moving on into loving again. So this little picture all of a sudden explained to me the process that I went through with my death of my first wife and definitely the death of my second wife. Just understanding the process was useful. Finding guys like you that can get me to look at life differently from a different perspective. So you realize that your life isn't over again, just your life with that particular person is over. And that was a lesson that actually, it's a little more than that it's over. My big issue when I wanted to have another relationship, and it took me 5 years to find one, is that I had a belief system that I could trust the women that I loved to leave me.
Mm.
It's a, I had incidents in my life with my mother being sick when I was 10 years old with Guillain-Barré. My girlfriend that I was going steady with in high school left to go to Washington, D.C. She's only going to be gone for 6 months. I said, well, I thought we were really a thing. I'll join the Air Force for 8 years. I never saw her again. And then Shirley left. She died, and I became a widower with 4 kids. So I had this belief system that I would trust the women that I loved to leave me. So
Mm.
the big breakthrough at Onsite was that I had to take a look at this belief system and say, is that true? Is it really true? No, they didn't leave me. Their physical body left me, but the memories of them in my life were very active and very real, and I was very appreciative of having had that time with them. So that's kind of how I would talk to people to help them through their grieving time. Um, I use tools just like you use tools. Those are the tools that have worked with me. But the biggest challenge that I find is having people look at their life differently and realize that maybe the belief systems that they had before about death aren't really working very well for them now, and they might consider looking at them differently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, no matter what, it's a weird thing and people process it different. And part of what I've brought, come about. And I had a real fear of death for a period of time when I was a child, like almost morbid type of,
Oh,
just
wow.
scared, just could not like get over
Yeah,
and could not like laying in bed at night. I can remember not being able to go to sleep because I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up. And I was
yeah,
afraid that other people in my life were going to die. And I don't know that I ever really, I kind of just outgrew it or whatever and moved on beyond it. But it really come back to me when mom passed. And I've been pretty fortunate. The people I've lost in my life for the most part have been grandparents and just the normal course of things.
yeah,
And I never really took that bad. It was just a thing. But when mom, she was 72, she shouldn't have gone that early. I mean, then again, what do I know, right? But I guess she went when she was supposed to.
yeah,
But I had a lot of trouble with that, and a thing of coming about similar to what you were saying, is that, and stop thinking of the fact that I am depressed and that she's gone and focus on the good part and celebrating that I had her for as long as I did. And I had such a wonderful mother and a lot of great memories and a lady who, she taught nursing forever. And for when I was a kid growing up, one of the things I can remember is that I was accident prone, man. I was in the emergency. I was a boy. I did stuff, jumped off fences and roofs and swung on grapevines and got myself hurt here and there.
Yeah.
Every time I would go into hospitals and these nurses would see my name and they would go, "Are you related to Donna Reeves?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my mom. And they was like, she was our, because she was the director of nursing at a college here locally.
Oh,
And a
wow.
lot of people went through her program. And, and the gratitude and the joy I can have today of like how many people she had a positive impact on their careers. And
Yeah.
those people had positive impacts on patients and that whole legacy of what my mother did. But it took some time and some real work to move from the one spot to the next spot. And I don't think I could have done it without some guide, without a helper, without well, at that time my 12-step sponsor primarily, but also other men and other friends around me.
It's interesting, the challenge sometimes for some people in recovery is they have nice parents. And they say, well, how did you end up with a drinking problem or a drug problem or other stuff? Well, it's because of the choices you make. You don't realize that at the time that you're accountable and responsible for the choices that you make, and you're always at choice. And you can choose to have a good life that's satisfying and fulfilling or not. By the way, you experience grief when you lost your wife or the relation or your mother of your kids. I mean,
Yeah, right. Yeah, when that divorce, that crushed me. I mean, because I was not a willing participant in that. That was forced upon me. I think I had a harder time with that than I did losing my mother.
yes, it's and so what I realized when I bent back and looked at my life is how did I learn about how to handle grief? Let's say you're a kid, 10 years old, or even 12 years old, and people around you die. Where do you go for lessons on how to grieve? I went to my parents. They did the best they could. I went to school. I went to church. I mean, all those belief systems weren't necessarily the ones that helped me accept, okay, this person has died. What really helps me is when I go back to nature,
Mm.
and I look at the cardinals that show up in the springtime. Well, they don't live a long time. Squirrels' lifetime is about a year. Uh, Even if you look at horses, they live, what, 27 years. The dogs and certain dog breeds die pretty young, like at 7 and 8 years. It's interesting that there's death going on all the time around us, but we just never accepted that that was something important, and we were losing something really important. When some people lose dogs and cats and horses, they're pretty traumatic incidents for them.
And really, those were my first experiences with death, was death of pets. That was
Yeah.
that was like almost, I kind of wonder looking back if there's not like a plan there in a way to help you begin, because I would bet you most people's probably early experiences with something going on with death probably come through with a pet, a lot of people.
Well, and then let's say that you're an athlete, and so you work really hard, especially around the Olympics now.
Mm.
You have people that have worked hard all these years, and all of a sudden their number one time to shine is it doesn't work. They don't give the demonstration that they want to give. Like the woman who came down the ski hill, busted out in the first 12 seconds or something. It Loss is a lot more than just losing a loved one.
Yeah. Yep.
I I have a excuse me. I have a neighbor that was reading my book, and he was saying, loss isn't just about losing people that die, because his wife has Alzheimer's. And so it's losing the person that you loved all these years, but they've got Alzheimer's, so they're not really there. That's point. And they also, let's say, have some physical problems where you have to take care of their colonoscopy bag and stuff like that. There's lots of opportunities to learn about loss, and life goes on.
Yeah. Yep. You talked about you're making me think back. I started at a place in 1991 as a draftsman. In 5 years, they put engineer in my business card, and I worked there 28 years. And in 2019, they told me I didn't have a job anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I like had all my eggs in that basket. I actually, and it wasn't a smart move. I was going to engineering school back whenever, but when they put engineer on my business card, I went, well, I need to be putting in all that effort. I is one, says so right here. And so uh, I had this on the, an old family-owned company here in Louisville, and so they had that OTJ type of training and move up through the program and everything. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't there, and I had this thing like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? And it
Mm,
was very shocking. Although I was sober, I worked for them 24 years as an alcoholic. I got sober. I worked 4 years and got caught up in a reduction of force
yeah,
and I kind of know what had happened there. But the grief and the shock and the grief of that loss, and just various things that we go through in life, and that was another one. But my recovery background, I did have and still do have a firm feeling, a firm grasp around when one door closes, another one's going to open.
yeah,
I keep that's part of that, half glass, half full glass kind of stuff, just I prefer to operate and I choose to operate in that mindset. Sometimes I got to remind myself, I got to go, because stinking thinking will grab me and I go in some other direction. But
yeah,
today I have the wherewithal to not let that get too far away and do something, take some action, do something to help and use some tools to get me bent back into the direction I need to be going in. And it did. Everything worked out. I was self-employed for 6 years and got to use my a whole nother skill set I had serving people, helping them, and I'm real handy. Like I can fix anything: doors, drawers, cars,
mm,
generators, uh, and I have a wood shop in my backyard that just kind of it was in place waiting for me to get laid off. I almost look at now.
yeah,
I made a portion of my income doing custom woodwork for people. And I really enjoy that. That's something I like to do. Um, and we had built this wood shop. The Many of the tools that were out there were in my grandfather's shop. They're old 1930 model drill presses and bandsaws and other tools that are like you can't get those kind of tools
yeah.
anymore. Except for like
No,
so there's some energy in knowing that my grandfather's hands were on these making stuff. My father's hands have been on these tools making stuff, and now I'm on these tools. But we did that, and it was sitting there waiting for me. It was in place before the event happened, and I didn't see that.
yeah,
I My dad, my brother, and I we own some property out in the country. We have like 54 acres up against the Hoosier National Forest out in the woods. I'm a real nature dude too. There's a battery charger out there that does something for my soul. And I can at times feel that like I need to go to the woods for a little while. I need to go plug into that battery charger out there and get myself back in. And we built that cabin in 1999. My dad, my brother, and I built a log cabin from scratch, 20 by 40 log cabin from scratch, not a kit. And and then, and I did it drinking, I had a beer in my hand all day long.
mm,
Uh, and then ended up having the problems that I had and coming to the realization this was unsustainable and life did that to me. Some things happened. And then I started using that place as a 12-step recovery place. And that's where I would do my fifth steps.
okay,
That's where I take men and we go down and spend the night at that cabin in the woods and do step five. And I have men's retreats out there in the springtime and 30 or so guys come out there and
wow.
it was my dad that said it too because he loves that I'm doing that, right? And I just showed him a picture. There was a bunch of guys. It started raining, run us all in, sit indoors and on the front porch. We got a 40-foot long covered front porch on it, and everybody's sitting in rocking chairs and lawn chairs and stuff. And I had the wherewithal, I jumped out in the rain and I took a picture of all those guys.
Yeah,
He said something that echoes in my brain today. He said, "Now that's what that place was made for."
mm,
And it dawned on me, I got chills right now thinking about it, that, and whatever you believe in, God, whatever, here's the way I put it.
yeah,
I had no idea what God was doing back in 1999 when we were building that cabin, and these things, and that's what I mean about looking at life in the rearview mirror and seeing, and also having, you know, I didn't make that up. Dad gave that to me, right? It's
Yeah.
just one statement gave that to me. You know, I'm with other people and they offer something and I don't realize it, but it lands inside of me in some way that, you know, means something. And but that positive outlook and that choice in moving through life with that kind of mindset, I think almost is like I remember somebody saying like gratitude is tomorrow's fertilizer,
Yeah.
something like that. That if I'm not moving through life in that kind of way, I can't expect uh, more blessings to come tomorrow.
Well,
And I
what
don't know that's exactly true, but I like the frame of
yeah.
it.
What you've done is you've just explained another major part of my life story, and that is I was part of Toastmasters. And I was 27 years old, and I talked to this guy who had just been promoted to a plant manager of a major motor manufacturing plant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, I got enough nerve to ask him why was he successful. He said, "Well, you know, Larry, I'm not a very smart guy." He said, "I didn't finish high school." He said, "I did eventually in the service, and I took a GED exam, and I tried a couple courses in college, but they didn't really work very well." But he says, "I'm not trying to be braggadocious, it just happens to be the way that it is. I think 3 to 4 times faster than the people that are next to me in production planning." So what I did is that was my gift and talent. What I think is the secret is to be creative in your gifted and talented areas. Not what your teacher thought you should do, but what your soul feels good doing. But he said the third and the most important thing is you have to implement your creations. A lot of people have lot of great ideas about what they'd like to do, but they don't take action. So I thought about that for about 6 months. It took me a while to figure it out. But in the area of production planning, and not production planning, but strategic planning, and helping groups solve problems, and just as solving marketing problems, I think 3 to 4 times faster than the people that are next to me. And I love it. I just love it. So what I realized is the tick trip or the tip to be happy and work is be working in your gifted areas and to implement your creations. And that's what not everybody learns how to do that, but that's what you've been doing. That's what I listen you've been doing anyway, and you're happy.
I am happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also making a big contribution, by the way.
Well,
So
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. The you know, it all feels a little bit like an accident at the same time too, you know. It's because like the cabin, you know, that was not the plan.
No?
That wasn't the plan. And the wood shop, that wasn't the plan. Really, the wood shop was because my daughter has asthma and those tools were in the basement and she was having, we would do stuff and the dust was getting in the house and we didn't know for sure, but we supposed that that was not good for her. And it seemed to be a pattern.
Yeah.
So we did something to get that out of the house. That was why we did it, you know. And these things that like these wonderful accidents that happen like that, you know, that company laid me off in 2019.
Yeah.
Last February, almost a year ago, right now, the director of aftermarket. We build heat recovery steam generators for the power industry. It's a great big boiler that goes in a gas fired cogeneration power plant.
Okay.
And and I did that for 28 years, and I was really good at it. This mechanical inclination that my dad
Yeah.
following behind him, just whatever, and my natural gifts too. You know, to some extent, I'm just good at that stuff, and I enjoy it. Like I said, you can't if when you're trying to put this piece back together that I'm trying to put together down there, you better put a smile on your face because you're not going to get anywhere. I'm going to have to go back down there. It's got some little springs, and every time I get the one spring in there, the other spring pops out,
Yeah.
and I got to get them both in there, and I will get it done. That's the other thing. Tenacious. I don't give up easy.
Yeah.
I don't throw in the towel easy. Well, they called me up, and now I'm going back to work for them part time. They basically are renting this brain. It's a good time to be in the power business, and they're growing like crazy, and they're hiring all kinds of new people. And I spend a good chunk of my time there, training guys, telling them, transferring my really it's a transfer of knowledge
Right.
of everything I picked up in my 28 years of doing that business of designing boilers and helping these new guys. And I just thrive in it, man. I mean, there's probably not a time I'm more like alive than when I'm sitting there with a sketch pad and some drawings, and this guy's trying to learn some, understand some concept, understand some piece of equipment, and I'm doing my best to transfer to him. And then, of course, when they get that, you can see it too. When it lands and you've made that and you did it,
Yeah.
I'm alive doing that. But I'm alive doing most things today. It's a good place to be. And I can see the smile on your face too.
I
And I
love the awareness. It's, oh, I'm enjoying my life. Oh, yeah, that's not too bad. I love the fact that you are. And the reason that I know you're doing good work is because you are enjoying your life. That makes a big difference for the people that you connect up with.
Yeah, yeah. I meet a lot of people today, and I watch and I see that, it's some luck or gift or something going on. But these guys, like I know people, we have a major automobile manufacturing company here in town,
Really?
and the people that work there are almost dead.
Yeah.
The drug and alcohol problem in the factory is so bad that I don't even think they try to contain it. I talk to these people and they bring their big water
Mm,
cups and stuff into work with booze in them, and
yeah.
you're building your car, uh, and they're miserable.
Yeah.
And but I've watched also. I have a wonderful friend, really good guy. He asked me to sponsor him some 5 years ago. Just last month, I gave him a 5-year token in a meeting, and he was one of them factory workers, and they sent him off to treatment. And when he come back, they told him he had his job back, and he worked one day, and he come back in the next day, and they said, "Oops, we made a mistake. You don't have a job anymore." And I was like, "That's almost evil. Let him come back for one day." And he was like, "All right, I
Yeah.
got my job back. I'm back in business," although he didn't like it. But you know how we get attached to that stuff. We don't
Yeah.
think we can live like I did when I got laid off. I had no idea how I was going to build what I was going to do now. And he went to work at a burger place for a little bit, and turned out he goes to nursing school, and now he's got a nursing degree, and he's advancing his education. And he tells me all these wonderful stories of him out in that profession, and he's alive today. And when I
Yes.
met him and he was working in that factory, he was dead. His
Yeah.
eyes were he just was not alive. And to be able to have a part, and to be witness and that kind of stuff. And then also, that's a tool I get to share with people that you're not stuck where you're at. You should meet my friend.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one. I could sit here and tell stories for an hour of these men that have gone from some stuck, because we call it a hydraulic at the bottom of that waterfall.
Okay.
And when you're whitewater rafting, we surf it on purpose sometimes.
Yes,
We
I
do it up
know.
there. And that's cool when you're doing it on purpose. That's all
Yeah.
right. Uh, when you're doing it by accident, not so much. And that stuckness that you can find yourself in life where you feel like you cannot get out of that. And some people do, a lot of people drowned in those
Yes.
hydraulics.
Yeah.
Um, but there really is there's a way out, and you can move through that rough spot. And like I said, one of the doors that can open for you can be better. A time I could line up dozens of men that'll tell you, what they thought was the worst thing could ever happen to them turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to them. And I can say that for myself too.
Are you familiar with the book, not Psycho-Cybernetics, but Positive Intelligence?
No, I read a lot of books, but nope.
That would be one I would encourage you to read because it really talks about how we end up with saboteurs in our life by the time
Mm.
we're 5.
uh,
And there's only 7, I mean, there's 9 saboteurs. And what happened, like in my particular case, I always thought I wasn't good enough, like I couldn't do that. And that saboteur dogged me for a long time in my life. I didn't know how to get rid of it. It just was something that came up that I had to deal with if I wanted to keep moving on. But some of the things that you're talking about, he has an idea about how when tragedy happens to you, you accept the tragedy, and then you convert to a gift and an opportunity, which is what you're saying. And I think that's just a wonderful way to look at life. I surf life. I mean, I don't expect not to have big waves in my life on occasion. And I know I feel them emotionally, I feel them in my body. So I've learned how to appreciate the experience and then to accept, okay, that's just an experience, and I can choose to move on, surf the wave, so to speak, and accept it as a gift and an opportunity to what's next in my life, which is where I'm at right now.
Yeah, yeah. I have a visual. I say it over and over again that like I visualize like when I would come around the living room corner on Christmas morning
Yeah,
and as a little child looking at the gifts under the tree.
yeah,
And I really try to like keep that as a way to move forward. I'm peeking around the corner just with a smile on my face, wondering what's around the corner, and
yeah.
keeping a positive attitude about what that childlike joy. I grew up with a thought that I was somehow broken or damaged because of something that happened to me when I was a little kid.
Yeah,
And it took me, like I said, until I don't think I actually broke free of that till I worked at 12 steps when I was 45 years old. And
yeah.
and I didn't realize that I had no idea the level that it was haunting me. I was blind to it until it's kind of like that thing of what when you got a 50-pound sack of flour over your shoulder, you don't realize how heavy it is till you put it down.
That's true. That's true. Hmm. Yeah.
Well, it was awesome talking to you and chatting and getting to know you a little bit. If there's
Thank
any
you.
final stuff you want to tell where we can get the book or anything else you've got that you want to share, and I'll also obviously pull that stuff and put stuff in the show notes so people can click and find it easily. But
I have two websites. One is called Always That Choice, where you can go in and purchase the book. And also you can make an appointment to visit with me. The first visit is complimentary. So, but
awesome.
I find that they're pretty helpful to people, help them get clear about what to get focused at least so they can know a place to start. And then I have a website called um, Stepping Through the Gate. It's a thing that came from some of the equine coaching work that I was doing. One of the women that was taking the course from me said, "What you've done is opened the gate. I've wanted to do some of these things for years, but have not been able to step through the gate, so to speak, to have what I want in my life." So that's the name of that website, Stepping Through the Gate. And that tells you a little bit more about me and what my background is and how I can be helpful.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, um, I'm enthused about you because like I'm 56, and although that don't seem old, you got more life behind you than you do in front. And then like my father, he still has a good quality of life at 88 years old, still tinkers around with machines. I love that you're still as active and doing and helping and in service as you are, and a lot of times that's another thing that can happen as the sands move to the other side of the hourglass, you can kind of feel like maybe you don't have a purpose anymore. And you're certainly not anywhere in that ball field.
You
And I like it.
Thank you. I love being always a choice and living from that space. It's really made a difference in my life.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, we will close this thing up. I haven't said this in a while, and I used to like close the podcast with a couple different things, and I think I'll use them again. You'll see some links here. I turn these podcasts around pretty quick, usually within a few days. So I'll send. I don't know if I have your direct contact, but I think it come through somebody. But I'll send it back through that direction. It's just easy. Uh,
It's just Larry at steppingthroughthegate.com.
I
Larry
can
at
kind of short. I
steppingthroughthegate.
can kind of shorthand that just enough that
Yeah,
I can find it. Plus, I can look up the website probably and find it too.
right.
Uh, I like to say, if you're not having a blast in your recovery, and I do believe we're all in some kind of recovery, it's kind of keyholed in my world that it means dope and booze, but we're all in I spend my life in recovery of becoming better, I like the definition that says to reclaim that which was lost or stolen is
Okay.
also recover.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
and I've lost some things myself, and some of them were stolen from me. And
Yeah.
I'll go back and recover stuff. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, you're not doing something right. That's possible. I'm having a blast. Larry's having a blast. I know
Yes,
that's possible.
I am.
And I just thank everybody out there for allowing Larry and I to participate in our own recoveries here by helping hopefully participate in yours. So
I hope we did help them.
we did.
Okay.
Have a great rest of your, it was Friday already. I've lost track of time. I just don't even like clock it anymore with my lifestyle. Day doesn't really mean much of it anymore. Not like it did back in the old Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 days.
I love what you're doing with your dad. Just give him a big hug.
I will do that.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Yep. Have a great one, Larry.
Thanks very much, Steve.